at the Royal Rumble that year, you're in there, you win the Royal Rumble, then Steve Austin comes back in, he chucks you out, so he wins the Rumble, and then the next night on Raw, you quit the company. That was a pretty inventive angle, to have the Rumble end like that, and to have you kind of come out and do the shoot promo the next night. What was kind of going on in your head when this was all being planned?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain without peeling the big scab off, but why not, right? But I actually believe, in all honesty, that I think there was a love affair going on between Shawn and Vince. I mean that with all sincerity. I don't say that to be just to put. I think there was something going on there, and it sounds pretty reasonable if you think about it today. Like, these are all things I thought at the time, but now it's all these years later. I'm like, I think there's a lot more going on there than people think. Boy toy and all that kind of stuff. You know, I really do. I'm not trying to, be mean or anything, but or start a lot of with anybody all over again. But I do think there was a relationship issue there, and I just think that that Vince was going to put the belt on Shawn because he was in love with him, and that's. I don't mean that in a jokey way. I mean it was dead serious, and that's all that mattered to. And Shawn was his boy, and he was going to make Shawn the champion. And Kevin Nash was a guy that wasn't ready to be champion, but Shawn was a guy that had been dreaming about it since he was old enough to remember what wrestling was. Does that answer your question?
Well, look, so Shawn wins the belt of the Royal Rumble in 1997 in San Antonio, but you're in the Royal Rumble match with Steve Austin, and they do the angle where you throw Steve Austin out of the ring,
right. He's
eliminated, then you win the match, then he comes back in and throws you out.
So that whole thing was like, it was crooked. There was going on. Like, I remember in the dressing room when Shawn said he lost his smile and went out and did the interview and was standing in the ring talking about how he lost his smile and he was crying. And I remember looking in the dressing room. Undertaker was right beside me, and we're both looking at Vince, and Vince is in the back stage area crying. Like, I could see the tears. Tears came down his face. I remember Vince wiping his tears. And I'm going, looked at Undertaker, and Undertaker goes, holy shit, like he couldn't believe it. I remember Undertaker looking at his eye, like he pulled his eye down like this and looked at me like, there's something fishy going on here. And then it was a few minutes, actually, maybe it was even before the match, but it was in the dressing room. Vince called me, Shawn I don't think was in there, but probably Pinocchio. Triple H was there. Steve Austin was there, Undertaker was there, believe it or not, Vader was there, and Psycho Sid was there. And they called, like, basically it was all his top guys in one room. And that's when he told us that Shawn was going to forfeit the smile because he had a career-ending knee injury. I wrestled Shawn the night before, and he did a standing backflip off the top turnbuckle. And walked back to the dressing room like nothing ever happened. I'm like, when did he hurt his knee? And it's like all of a sudden he's got this knee injury. And like I said, when Vince was crying with the tears coming down his, like wiping them like this, I always remember looked at Undertaker, and Undertaker was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. He's probably changed his thinking today too, but I remember that day, and it was very suspicious. And that's when they decided, like, okay, we're going to change everything, because like there's a part to the story that I haven't mentioned. But when they were trying to get me to come back in the summer, Vince told me that anything I wanted. Like, what did I want to do when I came back? So I said I'd like to wrestle Shawn in a rematch for the title and beat him and turn heel. That was what I suggested. And that was what I had in mind. And Vince and Jim Ross will remember this. If you ever ask, if you're in a situation to question him about this stuff, he remembers all of it. And so it's like Vince kind of gave me the sign off, like that's what they were going to do. So at WrestleMania 13, I should have wrestled Shawn Michaels and won the title back, and I was going to turn heel at the end of the match. They changed things and said, they're going to throw you with Steve Austin in a no-holds-barred match. And I'm going, I just did one of those 2 years ago with Bob Backlund and stunk out the building in Hartford at WrestleMania 11 or whatever it was. It's such a hard thing to do when you're going to wrestle somebody and then have, like when they give you a submission match or no-holds-barred match or whatever they call it. All it does is take out the pinfall. So there's no 1, 2, there's none of that. It's just holds. And I remember with Steve Austin when we got to the ring that day, and I remember Steve and me, suddenly it's me and Steve wrestling cold, like where we wrestled at Survivor Series, but we didn't expect to wrestle each other for maybe another year. I remember saying, because I beat him straight in the middle of the ring, 1, 2, 3, and it's like, we don't really have a story after that. And now it's like 2 months later, we're wrestling again at WrestleMania. I remember I was pretty discouraged about, I didn't even know what to do with Steve. I did everything I could think of at WrestleMania or Survivor Series when I fought him and had that first match. And so now we're going to WrestleMania, and they put us in this match where we're not going to be able to use pinfalls for any kind of storyline. And I just remember going, it's the same thing as what they did with Bob Backlund. It's going to stink. It's going to be a match. It's going to disappoint people. It's not going to be as good a match as what we could do if they just made it a regular match. I remember saying to Steve Austin when we sat on the ringside that day, I got the sharpshooter. What do you got? And he's like, well, I think he had Boston Crab or something. I remember it's like, well, I got the figure 4. And we named a couple we had 3 or 4 boring kind of holds that we could put on. And it was like, nothing special about any of this stuff. It was one of those, I kind of figured it was going to be one of those WrestleMania matches where you could hear somebody cough in the background. It was just nothing, And I remember it's like, it was a very delicate situation. And I just, when I look back on that time period, it was really special how that match, that WrestleMania 13 match with Steve Austin. First of all, I'll just say this. I didn't believe for a second that Shawn was hurt for real, and neither did Undertaker, although he's probably switched sides now. But I knew that it was bull, and so when they told me I was wrestling Steve, and Steve was getting so much momentum every show, every week, I remember thinking, I'm going to throw all my weight behind Steve. And because I want to see Steve become champion, not Shawn, because I didn't like the politics of it, still don't. And Steve was just a guy in the company. He was like me a few years earlier, where he's like, he didn't want to ruffle any feathers. Didn't want any problems with me. He didn't want any problems with Shawn. He didn't, he didn't care, but he knew his stock was going up every day. And so when I had WrestleMania 13, I spent so much time putting the match together, thinking about it, that I was like, I wanted to give Steve the best match of his career, and to blow away anything that anyone else did that night. And I remember that match, and I remember sitting with Steve Austin at ringside with nobody in the building, just him and me sitting. He's sitting on the apron, and I'm sitting in the front row, and we're just talking. Like I wasn't in the front row; I was in a chair on the other side of the barrier, on the fence or whatever they got there. But I remember just sat there, and I remember going, we didn't know what to do. We were both blank. And he's going, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, how does this sound? And I remember we just started kind of piecing the match together, like little pieces. And I love that about that match because it was so homegrown, like right out of just came out of places in your head. I don't know how to explain it, but that WrestleMania 13 match is my match. Steve Austin mostly nodded his head. And I said, this is what we'll do, and I laid out the entire match for Steve Austin in a couple of minutes, and that's the match we did. And I've always been really proud of that match because it was just so intense. There's all these different things in the match, not including the blood, that made that match stand out over. That was, to me, wrestling is kind of this, it's really hard to explain how wrestling works, like the how you put the match together and how the two wrestlers interact together. But that WrestleMania 13, most of my great matches, my WrestleMania 13, my WrestleMania 12 with Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, Survivor Series, Owen, even Mr. Perfect. I mean, most of the matches are me sitting down telling them what we're going to do. There's only a few wrestlers that sat me down and told me what we were going to do. Maybe Roddy Piper was one of the only guys that, when I look at the great match we had at WrestleMania 8, I go, that's a combined effort. Bret Hart, Roddy Piper. Like if it was like music and who wrote the song, Roddy and me would get equal credits because it was about 50-50. And, Steve Austin, as much as I love Steve, and I do, I like Steve a lot, but that match is my match. And the Survivor Series match was my match. Steve's input was minimal. And that's not putting him down. That's probably respect for me. It was like just letting me be in charge because I had that kind of superiority, like career-wise at that time. But I was determined to get Steve over, and I think I did in that match. And that was I think that really threw a monkey wrench into Triple H and Shawn's plan to push guys like me out of the company, which they did.